Hello?
Hey, John, it's Dennis from the Australian Rock Show. How are you?
Hey, I'm great. How you doing?
Look, I'm very, very well. Absolutely wonderful to have you on the show today. And, John, the reason for our chat is the just-released Wooden Heart Acoustic Anthology. You know, the first single, your interpretation of Bob Dylan's 1997 song, Not Dark Yet, is, in a word, superb. I adore Dylan's version, but, you have very much made the song your own. I guess, what does the very evocative Not Dark Yet mean to you?
Well, it was a challenge. It's certainly, to say anything of Bob Dylan's is one of his best is kind of ridiculous because it's all up there. Mm-hmm. It's in the stratosphere. But the melody of that and the theme of it being so bleak and yet such a nice melody, was pretty attractive. It was a real challenge. It wasn't like just taking a song and just singing it, which I hope I never do if I cover a song. But that was that's like a Mount Everest kind of song. It was massive. It was something that I really believed in. And I knew that he had gone to the wall when he wrote that one. You can just tell, and it was just a challenge. I would never go near something that I didn't write unless it was a complete challenge. I mean, my version is about a minute and a half slower than the original. I didn't play it once. I knew the song in my head, but I counted it off much slower because I heard it that way. Mm. So I wasn't trying to mimic Bob in any way. I really wasn't. People do that. They try and cover somebody's work to sort of align themselves with it. I saw it as a challenge, as a singer, as an artist, and I gave it my best shot. But I have to say, I think I didn't fail.
No,
I can't say I did it well, but I didn't fail. I think it's all right.
Well, just going on from that, I think that the songs on the acoustic anthology work so well, especially the ones that have been stripped back. And I guess if I had to choose a word to describe the album as a whole, I would say stunning. And I think this is one of those albums which will touch the listener in different ways. However, I really do encourage people to spend time alone and explore the material, undistracted with a good set of headphones, because as I said, these interpretations are pretty special.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad you see it that way. I mean, I chose the songs because they're lyric driven, I mean, there's other songs I could have put on that record. There's 23 tracks on it, but I just chose the ones that were the most personal, and it runs the gamut. There's In God's Shadow, which is a really dark song, really pretty much akin to Not Dark Yet, but more Missing You. Songs that just came alive. I even gave Isn't It Time a crack, which is like absurd, really, because the original of that has backing singers, strings, brass, a full-on rock band, the Babies, and to do it unplugged. Now that's really taken a huge bite of an apple. But I chose the songs that were the best songs. I mean, I could rap on about I did it for this reason or that reason, but the best songs. I love lyrics, and I write sometimes stories inside songs, like Hanging Tree, and they really stand up. I mean, I didn't really know what I'd got till I'd finished it. I listened to it the other night, had a glass of wine and listened to the whole thing, and I thought, Jesus, how did he pull that off? But I mean, you just jump in. Like with any album, you just jump in at the top and you hope for the best.
It's interesting, John, you mentioned, lyrical content there, because as a long-time musical fan and as a fan of poetry and creative writing, it's something I do look out for. And I would like to make mention of, the very beautiful Touch, which I think you cut back in 2001. Just love this song. And lyrically, there's a powerful line in there. The poet sees the world through rhymes, but only says so much. See, darling, the words are in my touch. Just love that.
Yeah, it was. You see, things like that come out of nowhere. I could. It's a song about being articulate or inarticulate, rather. You know, but your heart's in it, but you don't know how to say it because maybe it makes you vulnerable. I don't know, but I tend to look into those places when I'm writing songs where other people wouldn't go, for no other reason than it interests me. You know, I've had a very full life and lived really kind of as fast as I could in every situation. And you do get wisdom. And then when it comes to writing songs, that wisdom just floats to the top. You know, it's just, I never go looking for it. It always goes looking for me. You know, Sylvia Plath said, "The truth loves me." And, you know, it's true. You know, if you're awake, you're going to make work that touches people.
You know, I did read a press release from you, just going on from the lyrics, where you said, songs and songwriting keep me inspired, moving forward. I tend to scribble down notes, lyrics, or just random thoughts on pieces of paper, backs of cigarette packs, sometimes on my shirt cuff. Rock and roll is the closest thing I've got to a spiritual power. It's been the higher voice in my life, and it's never let me down. Very, very true, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I'm surprised I haven't read that for a while. That's in my bio on my webpage. But it is true. I mean, music has moved me since I was a kid, and touched me in a profound way. And it illuminated my life when I was feeling blue as an adolescent, or as a little boy listening to cowboy music, or, you know, really fabulous, wonderful, you know, opera, you know, like Puccini. You know, I mean, you just, it comes in any shape, size, color. You know, it's one size fits all. I mean, music is music. It doesn't matter if it's the purest pop song in the universe or the darkest, most threatening message that you could ever imagine getting through music. It's just a magnificent thing, and it doesn't matter what color you are, what sex you are, what religion you are, you know, whatever your preferences are, you know, in bed and out of it, whatever it is, it's just there. It's a universal language that touches us incredibly deeply through our lives, you know.
I couldn't agree more. Lyrics. I believe John Lennon used to have a notepad on his bedside table so he could jot down ideas if they struck him in the middle of the night. Had you heard that?
Yeah. No, but I'm looking at my bed. I'm in a hotel in New York City, and I was just looking at my bedside table. Oh, you said that. But I carry notebooks around. But yesterday I was walking around New York City, and I was leafing through this book, and I thought, how did I come up with that? You know. But generally, you know, I'm guilty as hell. I'm very lazy. If I wake up at 3 a.m. with a really great idea, I convince myself every time, how could I possibly forget that? And then I go to sleep and I don't remember it. And when I play guitar, like I hit a chord or something, or I hear a backbeat and hit a chord or whatever it is, all this stuff that I've got in my subconscious comes to the top. It's like having a really faithful dog. You know, you whistle and it comes. But you can go too far with that one. You can think you've got it under control, and you whistle for the dog, and the dog isn't anywhere to be seen. It's a very feminine thing. Is the muse? You know, if you treat it badly, it'll just go. It'll ignore you and move out. If you respect it and you don't overwork it, you know, it's generally there for you.
John, before we move away from lyrics, there is another one I've jotted down in preparation for our chat this morning, and it's from the song Downtown. And again, it's lyrics such as, you know, see the old man on the Bowery, take the night train to the stars. That's just so evocative.
Yeah, thank you. That came out of nowhere. I mean, it was really a song about scoring drugs. It was a song about walking downtown to score drugs. And you would walk past the Bowery as you were making your way to the East Village or whatever, And Night Train is obviously very cheap hooch. You used to have get it in a pint bottle, and it had a train going through the night on the label. But it was a reference to cheap, cheap, awful chemical wine that some of the winos down there were drinking, and oblivion, just oblivion. But yeah, I think that song seems to sum up the city, and it's a hell of a city, and it's been a big part of my life.
Well, there's a Johnny Thunders reference in there, which we are going to get to before the end of the interview. But before we move too much on, I do wish to mention your Australian tour of 3 years back. I managed to see a couple of shows, which I can only describe as stellar. And if I may, I would like to quote a live review from the evening I saw, which my brother wrote, which sums it up accurately. Only 2 songs in, and I'm marvelling at how good Waite's voice sounds. Unlike many of his peers, Waite is on pitch and note perfect. He has one of the most recognisable voices in rock, and as evidenced by his vocal performance tonight, is reminding the assembled flock that he is indeed a master of his instrument. John, I really can't add anything to that from that evening, other than we in Australia hope to see you on tour here again sometime, and I do hope you took away fond memories from your first Australian visit.
Oh, I've been trying to come to Australia since the babies. And we did actually go to Japan, where we could have passed through Australia. But the powers that be would always say things like, we can't get you down there, there's no demand. And meanwhile, we're having major hit records that you only heard about on the radio or when you picked up a paper. And it was mind-blowing that all the powers that be, all the managers didn't say you have to go now and organize it. And we got this guy, Rob Molnar, at the 11th hour. Contacted us. He's a promoter down there, and he said, "Do you want to come? We'll make it all happen." And we all said, "Yeah." Absolutely. It was like a dream come true. I mean, there's no excuse for not going there, other than the managers and the record companies won't bankroll it. And you've got your hands full in America with all these major tours, and the managers I think they're going to make more money having you go out on the road in America. That's the only thing I can think of that would stop us from being down there sooner. But I want to say it was one of the most happiest, glorious tours that I've been on. It was just wonderful to see Melbourne and Sydney and Adelaide, Perth, the whole thing, we all wanted to stay longer. We came down a week before to make sure we weren't jet lagged up to the eyeballs, and spent a lot of time walking around Sydney and eating a lot of Indian food and just interacting with the people. They were just such great people. People are moving now to Australia from America after the Trump years, It was enough for a lot of people. He said, I'm out of here. And I can see why people do that. It's a wonderful place. But the people have great spirit. And I never had a cross word with anybody. Everybody was so welcoming. You go on the TV and do like a news show. We did that in Sydney, and we ended up with all the presenters singing along to "When I See You Smile," and it was just like the drop of a hat. And everybody seemed to have a great sense of humor. We'd love to come back, and I talked to Rob, a couple of times a month about us coming down there again. And hopefully when all this stuff with the virus is sorted out, we will come back. I really hope so.
Wonderful to hear. And you did just answer one of my questions about, why the Babies never toured here in the 70s, as both, Broken Heart and Head First were top 20 releases here. And Isn't It Time sat at number 1, a song which I still hear regularly on AM radio stations.
You see, I didn't even know that. And I've been to Australia, so you'd think somebody would say to me, "Hey, Isn't It Time was number 1." But unless somebody sits you down and tells you that, I have a huge success in Holland. And we go and play there occasionally, and Golden Earring, I'm a big fan of them, and Barry Hay covered Missing You, and, I have a real connection with the Dutch. And it was only the last time I was there, a couple of years ago, that I realized how successful we were. I mean, sometimes it's like you just don't get it. You're focused on the work or you got your head down and you just don't realize. You know, I'm not trying to be modest here, but it's like, unless somebody gets you by the lapels and says, you know, you've done really well, it's number one, they love you, you tend to just keep working away. And I know it's an odd thing to say, but the same thing we just saying that Isn't It Time was number one in Australia. I mean, that's news to me, but somebody must have told me somewhere. But I mean, yeah, what can I say, you know?
Well, probably, I think that would have got the strongest audience reaction down here 3 years ago, I'm guessing.
But I can't tell. I mean,
okay.
When you're up there, you're not really waiting for the applause. You're really in a focused bubble. You really just, it's you and the microphone and the band are behind you, and you got the guitar going. It's just, if nobody applauded, you'd stop and think, what did I just do? Was that good or bad? You know? But once you're up there, you just sort of almost oblivious to everything else, you know?
John, we obviously don't have enough time to cover your long and wonderful career. However, as somewhat of a music historian, I have selected some moments which I will attempt to highlight in the time we have together today.
Sure.
I guess, you know, from what I read, your cousin Michael, who played acoustic guitar in a jazz band called the Tempra 7, opened your musical ears somewhat, didn't he?
Yeah, Michael was fantastic. He was at art school, and he was like the renegade cousin. He was a great painter, and he still paints, and he's like a really talented guy. And he joined the Tempra 7 and all that, and they were still touring last time I looked. But he moved in with my grandma, my nana, because he was too wild to stay at home, and she gave him the spare room. And I would go down there on the weekends, and he's playing this huge, big, black National guitar with a resonator in it. And he's playing Lonnie Donegan songs, and he's playing Jimmy Reed songs, and Hank Williams, and Nancy Whiskey, and all these skiffle people. And it just turned me, I mean, just the look of it, but the sound of it with a big metal resonator, you know, it was like, wow. So it was kind of in my genes, you know, from being a very young kid, that music was going to have a massive influence on my life.
Some of the Tempra 7's early recordings were produced by George Martin, which I think is kind of ironic, as the Beatles would go on to push jazz outfits to the background somewhat, wouldn't they? Yeah.
That's a good point. I didn't know that. But yeah, I remember watching him on TV. They had this really odd singer sung about Pasadena. There was like a really big hit. I didn't know that. I didn't know that George Martin did that. But yeah, they were hugely popular, you know.
John, in terms of creativity, how important was your time at the Lancaster College of Art? And I guess in researching this interview, I learned that in the 1960s, touring exhibitions of works by the likes of Picasso were displayed at the college. It's quite impressive.
Yeah, we had a lot of it. I mean, it was a very good art school. There's some real talent. I just reconnected with a guy called Ben Kelly that was a few years ahead of me. And he was on the boat with the Sex Pistols when they got arrested going up the Thames. And he designed the Hacienda in Manchester. And he designed the Sex Pistols rehearsal rooms. And I mean, that's just one of the people that went there. There's this guy called Joe Wright that became this worldwide famous illustrator. Just major talent, you know, all came out of Lancaster. It had a skylight, and it still does, where you would do the life class. And there was exhibitions all the time, and trips to Manchester or London to the Tate Gallery, you know, to see Richard Hamilton's stuff, and go to the, National Gallery to see the fabulous paintings. And it was a wonderful time. I mean, it was, just suddenly finding out about girls, and, it's like, you're moving out of home. And there's LSD, we're all tripping our brains out. And, the Jimi Hendrix blues, it was just a fantastic period of becoming. You know, you give me 4 years before I was shot out of the cannon. I think down in Australia, you have a year that you give your kids to just like walk about and just do whatever it is they want to do for a year, right? Mm-hmm. It was the same thing for me with that. It was 4 years of it. And by the time I'd finished, I realized I wasn't going to be a great painter. I was good, but I wasn't going to change the world. But if I stuck with music, whatever I did would be authentic if I threw myself really deeply into it. And that's what I did. I just played in local bands, then went to London, you know.
So you head to London, John, invited by guitarist Ollie Alcock to join his outfit named England. Did you write any of the material which ended up on their self-titled album from '76 on the D-Roy label?
No.
Okay.
I was just a bass player. I was. My chops as a songwriter were very primitive, and I was just putting a toe in the water. I thought maybe I would sing a song or something with Ollie, but I didn't. He was a great singer, still is. I was just a bass player. I had a Gibson EB3, and I was learning my craft, sleeping on floors and basically roughing it. But it was I joined his band. It's the only time in my life that I've actually been in somebody else's band, apart from Ringo with the All-Stars. You know what I mean? It's a weird thing, but I enjoyed it all because we were great friends. You know, it was a laugh a minute, really.
What band? Very fertile time, obviously, to look back. Early '70s in London. You gigged at the famous Marquee on Wardour Street, didn't you?
Yeah. We used to open for a few bands there. Jack Barry, the manager, would slip us £5. And I remember one night he didn't slip us the £5. When I was number one, I went back and played 3 nights there with Missing You, you know, because I loved the club so much. And he admitted to not giving us the £5 and showed up with a bucket of champagne on ice, and it was very appreciative of me coming back to play. But it was a great time, you know.
John, I believe that in the mid-'70s, after things fizzle out with the band England, you return home to Lancashire for a short while before departing for American shores, arriving in Cleveland, chasing, you know, your rock and roll dreams, settling into a band you'd been invited to join. That doesn't work out. You find yourself back in London, which is, you know, when the Babies ultimately form. Before the Babies are signed, are the band writing and rehearsing most days in preparation for a potential debut record?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. We had this thing that we were down on Tooley Street, which is between London Bridge and Tower Bridge. And it was all like warehouses, very bleak, Dickensian, foggy kind of real London, you know, real cold as well. It was always raining. And there was a little pub next door. We used to go in there for a pint of beer afterwards. But we were rehearsed in the cellar of a great big warehouse, a tea warehouse. And 2 artists, painters, famous painters, had this warehouse, and they let us use the basement room, and we took all our gear down there. And I would, they didn't really write songs, the Babies. I had to sort of like do it back in Belsize Park. I'd go home and then put some chords together. That's where I learned to be a songwriter, really. They just didn't have any songs. And Tony had one, which I wasn't really, it was more like Emerson, Lake and Palmer kind of stuff. It really wasn't my cup of tea. I was into the blues more. So I kind of dominated that big time. But rightfully so. I was the only guy that could really write. But I bring songs in, and even if it was just an idea, and try and guide the band into something that I could put a melody on.
From memory, the band fly to Canada to record the first album. Was that solely because producer Bob Ezrin lived there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I went to see Bob at a hotel. I was invited to go and meet him. And he sold me on the fact that he had a great studio and that he was going to be the man to capture what the band had. But he was wrong. I mean, it just was a complete nightmare, really. I think somebody just sent me the demos that the Babies did in our studios. Nobody's got them. But I've got them now. But they were way better than the first album, just way better. And that was done on a shoestring, you know. But it was one of those pitfalls, you know. You learn as you go. You just learn. You know, if somebody says they're going to do the right thing, and you think, oh yeah, you know, and then they don't. You know, you're just some disposable bunch of kids from London, and it's going to be this, and I'm not listening to you. You know, it got very tense with me and Bob, and I called him out halfway through and said, "This just isn't right. This isn't what we do." And he told me I couldn't sing. You know, so I mean, at that point, you try and get the best out of it and get out there as fast as possible. But I think our first album should have been better.
Well, that first single, If You've Got the Time, I think stalled at 88 on the US charts. It's a great tune.
Yeah.
Were you despondent with the response to that debut 7-inch? And I guess, how was your mindset?
Well, you know, we were doing every single TV show you can imagine and playing gigs. We did a 12-day sort of press junket across America, New York City, Cleveland, Detroit, Houston, Dallas, LA, you know, that kind of thing. And we were just bemused, or I was. I mean, I knew what was going on. I think the other guys didn't. I'd been to America. I knew about radio and TV and the subculture, Rolling Stone and Cream magazine. You know, I knew. But I don't think they did. It was new to them. But I was watching it and just thinking it was great anyway. And we'd get them next time, you know.
Which you did. And I guess the track Isn't It Time has been recorded by, from memory, co-writer Ray Kennedy and others, such as guitarist Robin Trower and French singer Johnny Halliday, who also covered Every Time I Think of You in French, I might add. Just a random...
I didn't know that either.
Okay, a random question. Off the top of your head, which interpretations of baby songs and your solo material, I guess, recorded by other artists do you admire?
Well, you know, Rod was a great influence on me with the Faces and Truth, Beckola with Jeff Beck and all that. And when he covered Missing You, I was kind of like very touched about that. You know, I mean, it was like, but Rod's a great guy. He's always got a good word. Very nice guy. We were doing a show with him about 3-4 years ago, and he stopped the show in the middle and went on about me being a great singer. And I'm on the edge of the stage watching it. And I could have just run out there and kissed him on the lips. I mean, it was just like a lovely thing for him to do, and he didn't have to. But I've always liked Rod. I think he's funny, you know. I like people that are funny, but he's got a lot of talent.
Did you do any shows with the Faces? Any supports?
Oh no.
Okay.
No. We weren't anywhere near as good enough by that point, you know.
I've got to ask you, where was that promo video for Isn't It Time was shot?
Hollywood.
Okay.
SIR on Sunset Strip. Actually, there's a story about that. I came out of... I was last to leave. I was talking to this girl, and everybody went home in the truck or whatever, took the gear back. And I was left with my bass and all this stage gear on. And I went to the front desk and said, "Can you call me a cab?" And this guy just threw the phone book down and said, "You know, you're on your own, son." So I had to get onto Sunset Strip and start walking. And I don't know how I got home, but I was lugging this huge flight case with my bass in it. And it was a really hot day. And I think that's the moment I decided that pretty soon I was just going to be a singer. You know, I wasn't going to lug around a bass guitar like that. I mean, it was just like, it cramped my style, you know.
Before we move away from Isn't It Time, I do invite listeners to go onto YouTube and view the January 78 Top of the Pops performance, totally live and just amazing. Just amazing.
Great. That was great. I mean, we were all over Europe doing TV, and I think we were all on speed or something, but we're all kind of knackered. You know, we were knackered, and it was Top of the Pops. You know, it's like, oh, Jesus. And, oh, man. I mean, heady times, you know. It was great to be young.
Mate, the Broken Heart album was produced by Ron Nevison, a guy who'd also produced that second Bad English album, I might add. I often ask musicians about producers and how influential they are during the recording process. How noticeable was the change from the first record with Ezrin to Ron Nevison on Broken Heart? And I guess what did they both bring to the table?
Yeah, Ron Nevison took me pretty seriously. He's a difficult person to deal with, but he hadn't got difficult at that point. He had a lot of distractions in his life, but he took me very seriously. I would stop a session and say no, and he would listen. I'd do a vocal and say no, and he would listen. And I would suggest parts, and he would be one big ear. The Bad English record was just like going for like a root canal every day. It was just impossible to work with him. So it had a lot to do with his breaking up. But people have bad periods in their life, and they come out better people. I have no idea. A long time ago.
Let's look at September of 78. The band play Tokyo and Osaka. Any scenes of Beatlemania, or should I say Babies Mania on that tour, John?
Yeah, no, it was it was really weird. There's a picture somewhere of me fighting off like 40 girls, trying to get into an elevator. And it was like really being mobbed. And it was fun, but it was also really terrifying. When you really lose the other guys in a crowd and somebody's trying to tear your clothes off, it's funny for about 5 seconds. And then it's like really something else. So, it's happened periodically when I was a kid, when I was younger. But, it's a big thing to be mobbed. It's really something.
John, the next couple of years, the Babies are out playing a lot of live shows in early 79, the whole run of US dates supporting Alice Cooper, festival dates with Cheap Trick, ACDC as well in 79. Do you recall anything of playing out with ACDC?
Oh, fuck yeah. It was fantastic. We're all big fans. Power Ridge is still one of my favorite records. Down Payment Blues, Sin City, Gone Shooting. The end of Gone Shooting where they keep jamming and the drums go into a 4 on the floor. Man, it's good. But Bon Scott, that whole thing. Yeah, it was my birthday. It was the 4th of July in Rockford, Illinois. And we were between ACCDC and Cheap Trick. I think somebody like Cheap Trick were trying to throw us to the lions because there was a lot of competition, but we held our own. The crowd was really baked. It was like they'd been there all day. We played bigger gigs, but it was a huge gig. It's about 40,000 people, I think. But we've played bigger gigs than that. I wasn't frightened. I've always been kind of cocky on stage to just go for it. But we all went to watch ACDC, and they just fell off the bus. They were wearing sort of like one of them, I forget who, might have been the guitar player, the second guitar player, the brother. He wasn't wearing shoes. It was just like they were real hippies. They were real just like but they were powerful, man. What a powerful, powerful band. I mean, the guitar playing in that band is just off the hook. But that incarnation with the brothers and Bon, man, Power Ridge, man, is like Keith Richards once said it was one of his favorite records. And there's every reason in the world. I used to work out to that. I used to get on a treadmill and do 5 miles to it. And
wow.
It's just superb.
John, before you go, I would like to talk a little about album artwork. In days gone by, cover art was such a crucial part of the whole process.
Yeah.
I've always liked the cover art for the No Breaks album, obviously one of the most recognisable album covers of all time. I believe the photography was done by English photographer David Bailey, whose resume is immense, having done all the iconic Stones album covers in the 60s. The Mask of Smiles cover art from 85 is a personal favourite, shot by Japanese photographer Noriaki Yokosuka. I love the whole theme which that image gives off. It has somewhat of a Japanese feel to it, including the JW letters. Cover art, sadly, is a lost art nowadays, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I'd been to see I was in New York finishing up the record, and I went to see a David Bailey exhibition across the park on the east side. With the A&R guy, Gary Gersh, we were all having a day out, and he was in town. I said, let's go and see this exhibition. This guy's great. You know, he's done the Cray Twins and Twiggy and all that, you know, Gene Shrimpton. And we went, and I was knocked out. And I turned around and said, I got to have my picture taken by this guy. And 2 weeks later, I was on the Concorde going to London to show up at Bailey's studio for the shoot, you know. And like with the second album cover, I went all the way to Japan. You know, it was like I've always been into art, being from art school, and I've always loved photography and painting and graphic design. So I always pay a lot of attention to, you know, like on the Bad English cover, the first one, I suggested that we all wear different clothes, and one of us wear like a hussar's outfit just to confuse people. It works, you know. I mean, it's give people something to look at. I remember getting the Jimi Hendrix records and poring over, you know, the liner notes and the inside picture of the experience on Axis Boulder's Love. It's this wonderful photograph of the three of them with the crease right down the middle of Jimmy's nose, unfortunately, but it's a great shot. And with the new album, I did my own sort of self-portrait in Sharpies and oil paint and put it all together and said, well, you know, I was going to call it Self-Portrait after Dylan. I thought it might be a funny, ironic thing. But I didn't want to go there and put a Dylan song on the record and try and make a joke of it. So it's just called Wooden Heart. But, yeah, album covers, man. It was like Hypnosis and all those great photographers that worked. Mick Rock, you know, that I know, a great guy, personal friend of mine. Mick Rock, you know, did these iconic Lou Reed albums and David Bowie and, you know, a really artistic man. He did the cover of When You Were Mine, Mick Rock. I've always taken a lot of interest in the artwork. Yeah,
I think it shows. Before we...
oh, thanks.
It does. Before we go on the Mask of Smiles, and I mentioned Johnny Thunders before, of course, Thunders lays down some guitar on the track No Breaks, and you reference him in Downtown, Johnny Thunders on the radio, but you can't put your arms around a memory. Had you struck up a friendship with Thunders? And it makes me want to ask if you in fact saw the Dolls when they played London in the early 70s?
No, I didn't. That was before my time, or I wasn't aware of it. Frankie LaRocque, I knew about the Dolls. A lot of my girlfriends around that point knew about the Dolls for some reason. They like women like the Dolls. But Frankie LaRocque, the late great Frankie LaRocque, the drummer, he turned me on to Johnny as a talent all in his own right. And you know, I mean, if you look back at Johnny's life, he lived it to the max, you know, and he was an icon. It was a truthful thing. I mean, from all accounts, he was a complete pain in the ass. He was junked out of his head. Blah, 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 blah. But put him on stage, and it's like watching, it's like kabuki theater or something. But it's like got Shakespeare in it. And it's Jean-Paul Sartre. You know, it's like everything is happening at once. And he could drop dead in the middle of a song, you know. And he was, you know, iconic to me. I called his manager, or I can't remember how I did it. But I said, hey, Johnny, if you want to come down and play, I'll give you $1,000 in cash. You know, we're in Clinton Studios in Hell's Kitchen. And he showed up, you know, and I sent everybody home. We went in the studio and cut the track. You know, it was like, it was really painful. You know, when he died, Steve Marriott died when I was in the mixing of the second Bad English record. And then 2 weeks later, Johnny died. And I threw the towel in. I think at that point, I was thinking about maybe staying in Bad English. But when Johnny died, as well as Steve Marriott, I thought, fuck it. You know, this is a message. I've got to get out of here now. You know, and I did. But
some of his acoustic material is so underrated. Have you ever considered covering one of his tunes on a Wooden Heart release?
Yeah, you know, the obvious choice would be You Can't Put Your Arms Around a Memory, but Guns N' Roses did it. And it's the most cohesive, articulate thing that he did. It was the nearest he got to a pop single It's a beautiful song, though. But it's been done. So let Johnny have the... Actually, when I was in New Orleans about 8 years ago, I went to the St. Peter House where he died, just to pay tribute, really. And saw the room where he passed and, closed the door on it. But
I think it's just gone really 30 years as well. I think the anniversary.
Really?
Just last weekend.
Yeah, it would be, yeah. But, what a way to go. He wouldn't have been any good if he wasn't what he was. That's the thing. If you saw Johnny coming, Johnny was coming. It wasn't like one of those things like he went backstage and changed clothes. He lived it, But you can only live it to a certain degree like that and live for so long. He burned very brightly.
Too fast to live, too young to die.
Exactly. He was... I think he was about 4 days younger than me or older than me. We're the same age. So it's all very poignant,
John, we better wind this interview up or I will talk all day. Upcoming plans for the rest of the year. Are the tour dates locked in for the US and Europe?
Well, we got a tour of Holland. We have 10 dates on the books that have been moved from last year.
Right.
But I don't know, man. I mean, it seems like Britain is coming out of it, and in the middle of June you can fly into Britain as long as you've been vaccinated. But they're having a lot of trouble in India and a lot of trouble in France. Paris is in lockdown last time I looked. And you just can't tell with this thing. I'm glad to see Australia's got it by the throat, and New Zealand too. It was wonderful to see Crowded House doing a big concert down there in New Zealand, and God bless everybody down there, and you seem to have got it right. But in America, there's certain states that just don't want to play ball about wearing a mask or getting vaccinated. So it's a bit more complex. And in Europe, obviously with India and Italy, it's just on fire. And I wouldn't like to commit to anything right now till July and just see. If we get to July, I think we got it whipped.
Okay.
But it's got some miles to go, I think.
John, thank you very much for your time today and for being so gracious. Your music and your beautiful voice has resonated with so many of us for a long period of time. Long may it continue. The new release, Wooden Heart Anthology, is out now, and I encourage fans to visit johnwaiteworldwide.com for all of the latest news and info. It's also the place where fans can purchase some of your wonderful artwork. Please keep in touch, and we hope to see you in Australia sometime soon.
Well, God bless you. I enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you.
Australia, man, I would love to see it again. So my fingers are crossed that we can come down there and hit it hard.
Before you go, John, every guest on our show gets to choose a song by an Australian band. What would you like to choose and why?
Oh, okay. I would like to choose Down Payment Blues by ACCDC.
Wonderful.
And if I can have my way, I want you to play Gone Shooting right after, because I love that more. But it's those two songs are just major.
We can do back-to-back for you, John Waite, no problem at all. Thank you very much. And
just a minute. I just want to say hello to Sarah McLeod. She's down there somewhere. And she opened our shows in Australia, Unplugged, and knocked them out every night. She's a wonderful talent. And she's out there playing, so go and see Sarah. She's fabulous.
She did, and she came out and did a duet with you as well.
Yeah, she sang on Isn't It Time?
Yeah.
Great girl, yeah.
Wonderful. Could have chatted with you all morning, but I
enjoyed the questions.
I need to go to bed.
I really enjoyed the questions. Yes. I'm just about to go out. Anyway, God bless, son, and I'll see you real soon.
Thank you very much. Take care, mate. Bye-bye.
God bless. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.